Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming tonight. I'd like to thank the Putnam Valley PTA for hosting tonight's talk and the Putnam County League of Women Voters. Amanda Chulo is over here, and just one. All right. My name is Joseph Montori. I'm a member of the Putnam County League of Women Voters. I'm also the executive director and founder of Sustainable Putnam and a trustee at Mahopac Public Library. So I don't actually live in your district, but I'm just here tonight acting as your moderator. I want to thank the candidates this evening for participating, the Board of Education, the PTA Meet the Candidates night as well. All questions to the candidates are to be written on cards and turned in to Ms. Chulo for submission, and then they'll be brought to me for reading. If you come up with questions during the forum, feel free to write or ask for another index card. Yeah, the questions will then be vetted by a member of the League of Women Voters, and the reason for that is we don't want questions posed that are to address, like personal nature, the questions of a personal nature, okay? So I'll now introduce the two candidates for this year's Putnam Valley Central School District Board of Education trustee election. There's one available seat, and the candidates are Joe Ferraro and Crystal Hernandez. Thank you very much for coming tonight. So I'd like to read the ground rules for the event, and they are as follows. The closing, our timekeepers are Ms. Phyllis Honig and David Hull of the League of Women Voters. For all statements by the candidates, the timekeeper will notify the speaker when 30 seconds remain by holding up a yellow sign, and again when the time is up by holding up a red sign. Thank you. The initial order of the candidates speaking will be alphabetical based on last name, so Mr. Ferraro first, Ms. Hernandez second. Each candidate will have a 3-minute opening statement. Our timekeeper will notify the candidates when 30 seconds remain by holding up the yellow sign, and then again when time has expired by holding up a red sign. Okay, we'll now begin with opening statements, and our first speaker will be Joe Ferraro.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Joe Ferraro. I'm running for re-election to serve as trustee Putnam Valley School Board. It's been an honor to serve our community for the past several years, and I'm excited to continue contributing my experience and leadership to the district's effort to provide an equitable and inclusive education for all students. My passion for education and commitment to student success is why I'm running for re-election. I believe that every student deserves access to a high-quality education that prepares them for success in college, career, and life. Throughout my tenure as a trustee, I've been dedicated to keeping our students' success the top priority and working collaboratively with other board members, administrators, faculty, and staff to advance the district's missions and goals. As we reflect on changes, challenges, and opportunities the Putnam Valley community has faced, we can appreciate how far we come. Transforming from a culture of content consumption to a culture of content creation has been essential for dynamic living and learning experience. We have witnessed this transformation in various programs, some such as science research, IB, arts programs, and in the classroom. We are committed to encouraging deep thinking and analysis, fostering innovation among our students in how they are taught, how they learn, and how they approach analyzing and understanding the world. Despite facing various challenges such as the tax cap, implementation of Common Core, changes in administration staff, and the COVID-19 pandemic, the Putnam Valley community has come together to prioritize the well-being of students. Although the path ahead may be uncertain and challenging, I am committed to keeping our students' success a top priority as a trustee of the school board. I'm excited about having the opportunity to continue to serve our students and our community as a trustee. As a trustee, I will always prioritize student success and ensure all students have access to the resources and support they need to achieve their full potential. I will support initiatives that promote equity and inclusion within the district, such as expanding special education program, providing professional development opportunities for faculty and staff. Finally, I promise to work collaboratively with other board members and to promote fiscal responsibility and transparency, ensuring that the district's resources are effectively used and efficiently to benefit all stakeholders. My extended track record of success in driving change that benefits students, staff, and the community, coupled with my passion for education and commitment to student success, continue to make me an asset for the Putnam Valley Central School District. In closing, I'd like to thank you all for your attention and consideration. I'm humbled and grateful for the opportunity to continue to serve our students and community as a trustee on the school board. Thank you, and I hope you'll vote for me on Election Day.
Thank you. Okay, Mrs. Hernandez.
Good evening, Putnam Valley community. I would like to thank each and every one of you for coming out tonight to engage in what I hope to be an invigorating conversation about our schools. I want to take a second to thank the Putnam Valley PTA for hosting this event, and I also want to thank the League of Women's Voters for facilitating. I am honored and humbled to be considered as a candidate for the Putnam Valley Board of Education. I have spent my life serving children and families in education, and I now believe that it is time for me to give back to the very community where my own children attend. As an educator, administrator, and a fierce advocate for students, I am a mother first. I desire to serve our community, assist bringing all our stakeholders together, and I would love to have the opportunity to collaborate with the members of our community in order to mold future school policy in the best interest of our students. I would like the opportunity to bring a fresh perspective to the board as a parent of students who attend the school district and also as a fellow taxpayer and citizen. I believe that all voices matter. All voices are important, and all should be heard as we continue to build upon the solid foundation which already exists in the Putnam Valley schools. I believe that with respectful dialogue, we can solve any challenge, and that it's important that truth and transparency remain the keys to building trust. Trust is important, respect is important, and communication is important. I believe that school board members have the grand responsibility of gaining the trust of the community, including staff, families, students, taxpayers, and community partners. As elected trustees, we must be able and willing to represent the many voices of our community. As you can see from my bio, I have served in public education for the last 16 to 17 years. I've taught for 10 of those years. I have been an administrator for 6 of those years, and I hold a bachelor's in music education as well as a master's in music education, school building leadership, and literacy and language from Lesley University. I am also in the process of completing my advanced certification in district leadership. I am passionate about educating all students and breaking barriers down for them to be able to succeed. Not only have I led a school during the COVID-19 pandemic, but my team and I have turned our school around to be a school in good standing. I use data to inform instruction, and I believe in educating the whole child. I believe that our children can reach their highest potential with the right support and resources. A school district is very much like an orchestra. Everyone has to do their part and practice their piece and work together in order to do what is right for our students. Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to our question and answer period. Thank you very much for your opening statements. So while the opening statements were 3 minutes each, we're going to do 2 minutes for each question for each candidate. I'm going to do my best to alternate, and you can remind me if I mess that up. So we'll start with Mr. Ferraro, and then you'll answer the same question, Ms. Hernandez. Okay.
I already started first.
Okay. So the first question is, it's actually a two-part question. I'm going to kind of flip the order here. Are you a regular library user? And do you support a yes vote on Proposition 13 for the public, for the Putnam Valley Library?
I was a significant library user when my children were younger. We couldn't get enough books. I've used it less up until recently, actually, when there were conversations of book challenges, et cetera, et cetera. I did a lot of work to kind of look at a lot of those books. And just recently, I just returned a book yesterday. As far as the vote, as an individual, I think I would support the library. I know that's an impact to taxpayers, but I think there's a point when the community needs to decide what's important to them, and I do believe that the library is an important part of our community, and I believe that support, from me at least, my personal support, saying that the school district is not connected at all in this support, it's my support alone.
Thank you.
So as a child, the library was my safe haven. It's where I fell in love with books and started my journey as an educator. Reading was hard for me as a child, and the librarians in my particular library were very patient with me. When I had a project at school that I needed help with, they were always right there to be able to help me research whatever it was. I spent hours in that library as a child, and I have wonderful memories of it. That being said, I think that our school district has done a tremendous job of making it extremely clear that the library vote is completely separate from the school district. While it might be on the same ballot, the same piece of paper, in the same location at the same date and time being voted on, it is a completely separate topic. And so truly, that particular question, while it may not necessarily have a place in tonight's discussion about our schools, I think it's important that the community understand how much I sincerely love the library. That being said, our library does not just offer books. Good libraries offer many more opportunities than that. And I think it's important that in this day and age, everyone be informed about the different resources that the library carries, such as free passes to museums to take our children to. And so I think that as we go forward, we should consider what libraries can do for communities, the fact that good libraries actually raise property value and are very important to the community. But that being said, I still have more research to do before I determine what my vote will be. Thank you.
Thank you. So forgive me because I'm not familiar with Proposition 3. So this question has some overlap to it, and we'll start with Mrs. Hernandez. Do you support the school budget, bus, and library propositions? So you can skip it.
Okay.
Any
Yep.
part of that that's redundant.
Absolutely. So we've talked about the library. Let's talk about the school budget. Schools cannot operate without the support of their community. And regardless of the challenges that a community may be having, there is a complete detriment that will happen if our budget is not supported by the community in which we live. Our children need the funds and the materials and the people to be able to do what it is that they need to do in school. And our teachers need the very best materials and resources to be able to do their job. The personnel is the biggest part of the budget, and it's really important that everyone remember that the people that are with our children are the thing that most counts when it comes to our kids. And so that being said, I do very much support the school budget. And in addition to that, both of my children take the bus to school. I do not ever want to get a call that the bus broke down, but if it did, I would want to make sure that there was a plan B in place. And so yes, I will be supporting that proposition as well.
Thank you very much. Okay.
I'll make the simple answer of yes, I'm a supporter of the budget and support of the bus and support of the library again.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll shift to Mr. Fernandez. How do you feel about the implementation, I'm sorry, Mr. Ferraro, excuse me.
I know who I am. It's okay.
How do you feel about the implementation of the new literacy program at the elementary school?
I believe the Scholastic program that's now been introduced into the elementary school is a strong program. I'm not the educator that would know all the ins and outs of that structure, but from all reports, the aligned reading and the way that students are able to engage with the content is a reading program that sets up the building blocks for future success. So I think it's a good idea.
Okay. So Scholastic Reading is the new program that was implemented this year. I am a part of the steering committee at the elementary level, and so in hearing conversations about how teachers feel about the program and how it's going, one thing that I can say from those conversations as well as experience in implementing a new literacy program, and mine was implemented during the pandemic, is that it takes people who are willing to do really hard work. The program itself is probably research-based. Scholastic doesn't put out anything that's not of high quality. And so that being said, in my research of the program, I did find that it supports small group instruction, it supports individualized instruction, it supports both reading and writing, it supports whole class instruction. It's able to meet students where they are and give teachers the data and the information that they need to be able to move students forward regardless of what their reading level is, whether that be below, on, or above grade level. It also provides a wide variety of books. I've had the pleasure of seeing the book room with the new Scholastic materials, and they are absolutely fantastic. All of that being said, none of those books and materials are going to move our students or teach them how to read. It's the people who are in the classrooms who do that. And so I think it's really important that the implementation of the program continue to be strong. That I would encourage that administrators and all people working in the building would roll up their sleeves and be able to get into some small groups and teach some of those lessons to experience what those materials bring to the table. Look at the pedagogy that stands behind the materials and ensure that the teaching that's happening and the pedagogy that's happening in the classroom is right for all students, creating that ramp of instruction to make sure that all students get what they need in the classroom to be successful readers and also writers. Writing is very important. It's the voice of our children, and so our children need to be the very best writers they can be.
Thank you. Okay, our next question, we'll start with Mrs. Hernandez. Many people believe that Board of Ed members have to be silent on some of the bigger, more controversial issues. What is your sentiment about that?
Well, I can start by saying that I am not a quiet person. I am not shy about that. Those of you who know me know that to be true. I do believe that there is a place for silence, and I think that there is a place for listening. I don't think that we can go very far if we don't listen to one another, and that does require silence. But that being said, it's important that when we deal with challenges and when we have elephants that sit in the room, that we address them. It's important that we speak about them, that we listen to the viewpoints of the others sitting at the table, and that we engage in respectful dialogue regardless of what side of the issue that we're on. I think when we shy away from having those conversations, it actually demonstrates to our children that they can't have courageous conversations with one another. And I believe in being a role model to the kids that we serve. And so that being said, I really do think that it's important as a Board of Ed member, which is an elected position, to be the voice of the community, that the board members be the voice of the community and that they speak out on issues that they can. Now, there are certain limitations there, right? There are certain things that we, as board members, perhaps might not be able to talk about due to certain limitations or laws that exist. But when we can speak, we should. And we should talk, and just because we don't agree, that's okay. We live in a democracy where we're able to disagree and do so respectfully and have those respectful conversations. And I think that in doing that, in going back and forth and presenting our sides and our vantage points together, we can come up with solutions that will meet the needs of our students.
Thank you. Mr. Ferraro.
There are quite a few areas where school board trustee in public, at a board meeting, et cetera, are refrained from speaking. The role of a board of trustee is to establish district policies, hire and evaluate the superintendent, approve the budget, ensure compliance with those laws of state and federal, and to advocate for the district in providing oversight and accountability. As far as interaction within a school board meeting, that is also governed by meetings laws. Does not mean that the board in their meeting doesn't have discussion or doesn't have conversations, also conversations that exist with the community. We are open and receptive to hearing from the community at the Board of Education meetings. And there's a number of question marks that are within that question, so I'm sure we'll get additional questions clarifying what they are. But that to say, areas of contract, area of personnel, those are things that cannot be spoken about.
Thank you. Okay, for the next question, we'll start with Mr. Ferraro. I've heard about Board of Ed members, there's a question from the audience in first person, it's not me asking. I've heard about Board of Ed members being rude to teachers. How would you handle a member, a trustee, mocking teachers?
Of board members being rude to? Okay.
Yes.
I don't know where that's the case. My several years on the board, I've not heard and or not experienced that firsthand for sure. If the question is how do you handle that, that question is an area that really goes through superintendent. That's a conversation that if the teacher or staff feels disrespected in any way by a board member, they should be reaching out so that fairness and conversation can happen. But again, I feel that that's a loaded question in that I don't even have an idea of what that could be referring to.
Thank you. Mrs. Hernandez?
So I believe that we're all human, and many of us are very passionate about different topics and issues. I'm pretty sure that we've all been in the boat where we've made a mistake, and I think that that's where communication can be very powerful. So if there were to have been a situation where a board member were to have been rude to a teacher or it to have been perceived that way, I think that relationship is really what's important there. I think it's important to talk. Again, we're not always going to agree, and things don't always go perfectly in the conversations that we have, but that's how we learn and that's how we grow. Because when we're uncomfortable, we're growing. And so if that scenario were to have happened, and I believe the question is how would we handle that? Personally, it may not be protocol, but I would like to have a conversation, if it were me as the offender, with that particular person who I offended, to figure out what it was that I said that offended them, because I can ensure that it probably wasn't intentional. I don't think that people are wanting to be rude or disrespectful intentionally, because no one themselves wants to feel that way. But I would want to get to the bottom of the why and what it was that I said that hurt them, listen, seek to understand their perspective, and then apologize for the fact that it hurt them, whether or not it was my intention. That being said, I think that power in communication and relationship is really very important. And that takes a certain level of humility to be able to say we're people before we have any of these positions or titles, and that our relationships as people are the building blocks of our particular community.
Thank you. Okay, and I'm going to come back to you with the next question.
Sure.
What is the role of the Board of Ed in teacher contract negotiations?
So there's a precedent that's set that Board of Ed members usually do not engage in those conversations. In most districts, neither do the superintendent. They do so from afar, not usually at the table. And so obviously the Board of Education, the superintendent have to sanction whatever is going to the table, but that being said, they may not be sitting at the table to be privy to the actual conversation that is had. That is a difficult place to be in, I would imagine. I've never been a board member, but I could imagine that that is a really difficult place to be in because you are not the one having the actual conversation, and you are not able to be a fly on the wall. And if you were, that probably wouldn't be good for negotiations. And so I believe that it's important as a Board of Ed member, as Joe mentioned, to really look at what are the needs of the district, what are the needs of the negotiating party, to figure out how can we best meet those needs if they are in the best interest of students. And at the end of the day, oftentimes, what is good for a negotiating party in a school district oftentimes does trickle down to being good for students. And so I think when you make the question about, is it good for kids and can we support it? There's another question there. Are we able to support it? Are we in a financial position to be able to support? Have we done our due diligence to ensure that we're in financial positions to be able to support in the future? I think that those are all questions that the board probably has as they give parameters for negotiations that happen at the negotiation table.
Thank you.
So in Putnam Valley, it's often the agent of our negotiation is our finance and our superintendent, working with union leadership, with attorneys. It's been very different multiple years. Sometimes it's simply a superintendent and the union president in a room, and it's an easy contract to bang out. That seems to have altered over the last decade or so, mostly because the items that need to be discussed are pretty complex and not as simple as they used to be. So the superintendent is kind of our point person. The trustees are only involved in so much that we're talking with the superintendent. We set our parameters as far as what the priorities are, what we can't do, think we can't do, what we can offer, can't offer. And that is all then worked through either a negotiator as well as the superintendent and our attorneys, with the emphasis on coming to a fair and equitable deal for the entire district, for our community, for our teachers, for our students, where we are, exacting the best benefit that we can for the limited resources that we have.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, Mr. Ferraro, we'll start with you on this question. Spanish is the number 2 language in our region. Our K-4 schools have only one choice, Mandarin. Do you feel that this is important to change?
I believe that Mandarin is a global language that is setting students on a path to wider exploration. I don't disagree that Spanish implementation earlier and earlier would be beneficial as well. There is, again, we do have the issue of being a small district that doesn't have unlimited resources and unlimited teachers to be able to expend on those additional smaller categories, which is why, for a school our size, it's amazing that we have all the options we do, particularly at the higher levels in AP and IB. On the elementary school level, that becomes more complex and more difficult. I'm not saying you should be replaced at all. It would be fantastic if we could augment and have more than one, and that's always something that we're exploring.
Thank you.
So I absolutely agree with Joe in that it would be great to be able to augment our program and add world languages that would benefit our students. I would say being a person who speaks 2 languages and fluently at that, that my story is that I was able to land my first job because I was bilingual in English and Spanish. I was serving a community at the time that has many languages represented, but Spanish is definitely the number 2. And that being said, it was circled in red on my resume when I met with the person who interviewed me. And I never forgot that because I wanted them to hire me because of what I brought to the table in my skill set. And I felt like that language piece was what was getting me over the edge. Now, that being said, over time, I've grown to learn that being able to speak two languages is an absolute blessing. It is even more of a blessing to be able to speak Spanish and celebrate my Spanish heritage as I go forward in the different opportunities that I pursue. I do think that it would be very important in our particular country for children to have exposure and to have the choice to be able to speak Spanish fluently, and not only speak Spanish fluently, but be biliterate and bilingual and have that seal of biliteracy offered to them to be able to go out into the world and conquer different opportunities. There are many, many, many Spanish-speaking countries in the world, and while Mandarin is one of the world languages, I do think that Spanish is right up there with it. I would really love to see that Spanish would be considered as that piece, but the thing I really want to do is ask our students and our families, what language do you really think would be best for our children to have options to? Again, not saying that we're replacing one with the other, but to be able to build our program of languages, giving more opportunities to our students as they go forward in their educational and professional careers.
Thank you. And to Mrs. Hernandez, I'm concerned about the efforts to ban books in various states. What if that happens here? Do you believe that parents should do you believe that parents should opt out of certain books for their kids, or certain books should be removed from school libraries? I could repeat that if you'd like.
No, that's okay.
Okay.
Being a mom of three, I'm super involved in the literature that my children bring home. In what I do every day, I'm super involved in the literature that is at my school. So I live on both sides of that fence. And what do I mean by that? We are in a world of public education. This is a public school. And it's important that our public schools be havens and safe havens for all children. I do believe that it's important, being a minority, that our children are able to see themselves in the literature and that they read in their libraries. That being said, I am also a fierce advocate of my own three children as a mom. And when I put that hat on, I want the ability to be able to vet what's coming into my home and ensure that what's coming into my home is aligned to the values that I have in my house. I have a responsibility as a parent, and that responsibility is to instill the values and the beliefs and the moral systems that my husband and I choose to instill in our children. And that being said, I want to make sure that I am always having conversations with my children, not to say you can't read that book, but to say let's talk about that particular book and how it aligns with who we are and what we've instilled in you and who we are as a family. And so I do believe that a public institution should be as widely varied as possible, but I will say this, and I am passionate about this topic: books should be age appropriate for children. And it is very important that the school take on the responsibility to ensure that that age appropriateness is happening. That being said, within a library, I do think, again, that it's important that our kids have access to all types of books, giving them windows to the world. But that parents should remain responsible and have the right to be able to continue to instill the values and beliefs in their children that they believe are to be true.
Thank you. Mr. Ferraro.
Books serve as doors and windows to our students to see other worlds and see themselves. The rights of parents to control, in a positive way, the literature, the books, the media that their children bring home or are exposed to is never been in contention. The age appropriateness of books is key. The reason why books are selected to be in a library is important. The idea that broad viewpoints, and so students can see themselves in literature and in stories, is important. I would just say that I think that parents' rights have never been an issue, even though they seem to have come up as an issue. There is the idea of parents constantly have their own rights to take care of their children. The issue becomes not being the parent in control of other people's children.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And so next question to you, Mr. Ferraro. What is your perspective on the expansion of IB into the middle school? Do you believe IB has been successful in the high school? And can you support your answer with data/evidence, please?
We do see a transformation in the high school of students taking more challenging courses in the high school. We do see them not skating in their senior year, as has been in the past, taking the easiest classes to move on to college and have that almost that gap year. The IB program has been very much success. We are seeing amazing work coming out of the IB program, along with the science research program. And I was actually part of the conversations when we interviewed Fran Wills, and then when we interviewed Sandy, that this was going to be an IB school. That was kind of the goal. The Putnam Valley High School and Central School District didn't necessarily stand out from all the other schools in the region. IB allows our district to stand out, to kind of be our flag, and is actually a magnet now for outside school districts to tuition their students into our school. And the idea, ultimately, if we can implement it satisfactorily, is to move this program from 10, 11, 12 to 8, 9, 10, and then move it so that the entire district will eventually be an IB district. There's expense connected to that, but the idea, the worldview and the way of learning and thinking and working on capturing knowledge is a step above where we've been. And it's a constantly growing effort, and it requires buy-in, requires a lot of work, and it does require resources. But ultimately, I think it sets our students on a fantastic path forward.
Thank you.
So I've had the pleasure of talking to some parents who actually have a student right now who's about to graduate with an IB diploma, as well as one who graduated last year with an IB diploma. While we have the diploma, students also have the option to take IB classes just to get the feel of the program and be able to gain some of the skill sets that are enveloped in the teaching of that program as they get ready for college. The families of those students were very happy with how the IB program prepared them for college and is preparing them for college. And I do think that it's wonderful that we took that step in that direction to be that flagship school that hosts the IB program. It does bring a lot of rigor to the classroom. Kids need to be ready for that type of rigor, and it's really important that we understand that IB is not for everybody, and that's okay. On the flip side of that, it's really important to also understand that AP courses still really matter, and we have to ensure that we are doing all that we can to continue to uphold our AP course program, because that is going to be very important to many of our students and families as they get ready to attack the finances of college. Having those credits under their belt gives them college credit. In many more schools than IB credits will be accepted, and so that's a big piece of our parents being able to send their children to college, and I will be paying for college for 12 years, and so it's really important to me that I'm able to financially support my children in that era. I have spoken to teachers who have taught both AP courses and IB courses, and they do appreciate the rigor, again, that it brings to the classroom and the pedagogical practices that have now changed their teaching. And so I'll go back to my statement about the literacy program. As in any program, quality professional development and time are very important. Resources are very important as well, but making sure that teachers feel confident in their abilities to teach a course well is monumentally important to the growth of the program and should be done before it moves on to another building.
Thank you. Okay, and so to you, Mrs. Hernandez, there's two questions here that I'm going to combine. The first is, what is your position on DEI? And the second is, I, for one, appreciate the opportunity to have more diversity on our board. How can you contribute to that goal. Maybe they're not really the best paired, but they both brought up diversity, so I combined them.
That's perfect. Thank you so much for that. So, gracias por esta pregunta. Yes, I would bring some diversity to our Board of Education, and I'm happy to do so. But that being said, what is my position on DEI? I think that's an interesting question to ask. I don't think that it's a position. I think that it is a way of thinking. When I think about diversity, equity, and inclusion, the part that sticks out to me the most is the inclusive part. I was not the child that was included when I was a child. I was pretty much the only Hispanic in my school. I grew up in a wonderful school district with wonderful schools and teachers that loved me and poured into me. But I was the only person with a Z at the end of my name, and I was formerly Gonzalez before I was Hernandez. And so that being said, I think it's important for us to understand that there is a lot to diversity, equity, inclusion. It's not just about race. It's about ensuring that all of our students with disabilities are included in that conversation. I like to call them exceptional students because they are exceptional in their own ways. And it's important that we come to the table and have a clear mindset, know what our own bias are as far as what we believe and what we think and the experiences that we have, and be willing to listen to the experiences of others as we come together and create policy or build programs into our schools. DEI is not meant to be divisive, and in some places it's taken on that role, and so we really have to be very careful about how we use DEI. Would I bring diversity, equity, and inclusion to the Board of Education? Yes, I would. I would think about all students. It's my job on a daily basis to think about how I give access to the very best education to all students, and so that is the way that my brain works. And I would absolutely do that as a member of the Board of Education, constantly including all of our subgroups to ensure that we are providing access to everyone.
Thank you.
We as a community decide what DEI is for our district. And those conversations have taken place, they're constantly taking place. The idea of it as being a support of or against, it is, again, it's a mindset. And it is the idea that everyone needs to be seen, heard, and believed. And their experience is important. Either they're through their orientation, through their gender, through their ethnicity. The idea is really important that inclusiveness is primary importance to having students be heard, be seen, and be understood, and see themselves. As far as what I bring to the table from a diversity standpoint, I am a white man, and I bring a mindset, however, that has totally been changed over the last 5 to 8 years maybe, as far as the idea of how important diversity is. We've been trying, and we put efforts in place for sure on the staff side to try and recruit more teachers of color, recruit different types of and look for them in different places than we typically have, with a typical middle class, primarily white neighborhood does. So that's an effort that we've put in place for the district, and to varying degrees of success. And we look forward to trying to do even more so that students can see themselves in their teachers. So, I mean, it's become cliche now, but if you can see it, you can be it. And so that's a big part of what is important.
Thank you. Okay, and back to you. What is your view of our current programs, and where do you see need for change? And a second question that's related, what would you like to see eliminated from the school curriculum?
The thing that I think needs more emphasis, or things that I think need more emphasis, would be in the world of financial literacy. I think that is so important for students to come out of our school district with a firm grasp of stock market savings, loans, credit cards, just kind of this, even how to mail a letter. There's so many things, and this is, I'm speaking to you as, a parent of 2 college students, well, one's graduating, but I'm amazed sometimes of how poorly a job I did in kind of these real-world experiences with, where the envelope goes. It's silly things, but ultimately, it's really, really important that some of the things we take for granted, that we understand, and I think we shield our students and our children more from kind of those decisions and being active in that things, because now we do everything from our phone instead of kind of a lot of that human interaction piece. And I do think that financial literacy, as well as the tech and the vocational, is a really ripe area for us to expand our presentation and our engagement. Those are 2 really big things. As far as excising anything, there's nothing that comes to mind as far as, oh, this is a program that I don't think we should be doing. I do think that as much as we can add to a more diverse pool of opportunities for students, that way you reach students where they are, and because you never know what that one thing will hook a student. And it could be the arts, it could be music, and those are the things that are really, really key to be able to find that connection to what gets somebody really engaged and excited in learning, because it might be the last thing on the list that we try. So, I'm a not necessarily throw everything at a student, but to give diversity of choice.
Okay. So I think that our district is in a good place with programming. I think all of the schools have made some gains in different areas. We talked about scholastic literacy, we talked about IB. These are all wonderful things happening at the elementary and the secondary level. But that being said, we're in a good place. I think that we could be in a great place. And what I think that will take is ensuring that when we make decisions about programming, that we're doing so with data behind it. How is this program going to help our children, not just this year, but in the years to come? What is the sustainability of this program? Are we just doing it because it's a hot topic, or are we doing it because it really matters to our children as they go forward into the world? I think that real-life application piece is very important to consider. How will our children use these skills that are being drawn from the courses and the programs that we have in our buildings later on in life? Is it worth it? 1 minute in the classroom is gold. And I think it's really important that we savor each and every moment with programs of quality. That being said, one of the areas of growth that I think we can work on is the writing in all of our students. Aside from the IB program, I'm not sure that the writing is as strong as it needs to be. And I mentioned before that I'm passionate about writing because it is the voice of our students. If they can't write, no one will hear them when they're speaking. And it's really important that we teach them how to do that well. It's important that we teach them how to get their ideas from their head to the paper. Additionally, we need to think about how next-gen standards are being applied in the different areas of instruction and how our curriculum is addressing those standards and the changes in the strands of the standards from Common Core to next-gen. That's specifically true in the area of mathematics. And lastly, I want to celebrate the arts program here in Putnam Valley because it is truly amazing. If you were able to catch a glimpse of the play over the weekend, it was absolutely fabulous. And additionally, our special education program is absolutely phenomenal. So kudos to all of the people who work on those programs.
Thank you. Okay. Next question. What will you do to advance the participation of taxpayers who do not have children in the schools? And that's to you, Mrs. Hernandez, first.
Yes, thank you. So I believe in community. I come from a very cultural background. I'm half Italian and half Puerto Rican, and we love food. And I believe that coming together around the table to break bread is one of the most important things that we can do as humans. And I believe that even more now after the pandemic. I think that we lost our human connection somewhat during the pandemic, and I certainly see that in our children. I see that in my children. And so I think that as we plan our school year from the district side of things, I think about how can we come together in different events, in different times of celebration. How can we celebrate the people in the community, not just because they're a part of the school district, but because they're people in the community? How can the school district collaborate with small businesses in our community? I think that's really important, and that would give us a window into some folks who don't necessarily have children in the schools at this time, or perhaps have never. But it fosters the environment to be able to have those conversations. For parents to be able to come together with people who are not parents in the district and say, hey, this is what the schools are doing, so that there's a real life application to where the finances and the taxes are actually going. I think that that piece can sometimes get lost if you don't have a 7-year-old coming to tell you that they did a lesson in science today on a daily basis. And so I think communication and fostering opportunities of collaboration and community would be a really wonderful way to do that, such as a multicultural celebration, or even a celebration car wash where we could raise some funds for the music program, things like that, just coming together to be able to have conversation, even break bread once in a while, and think of ideas and ways to hear both sides of how things are going.
Thank you.
For years, we've the drama department has had their Thursday night event where they invite senior citizens from the community in our doors to witness our show. Sam is now able to go to those things. That's an open door into our school district. I have been for years, and finally this year was able to convince the district to engage in a printed version of our newsletter to go to everyone in the community, not just our parents. And that's really, I feel that's really, really important, so that community is aware of what is going on in their district, because it is their district as well. They're paying for it. And the idea that just because you don't have students and children in the actual schools now doesn't mean you didn't 20 years ago. And you being engaged in at least what's going on, inviting those newsletters also invite people to engage with us, to add themselves to our email list so they get more and more information from us, and invite them to events and to become part of committees, et cetera. That's just in the last year. It's been I shouldn't say a battle, but a wish that I've had for years to get that implemented. I'm happy that we finally got that through.
Thank you. Okay. Next question might be a quick answer for both of you. Did you vote in favor of the Thunderdome, AKA the Wellness Center?
That's funny. I will not refer to it as the Thunderdome, but as I guess I essentially have voted yes on all budgets, and I have voted yes on that project.
So I love that that's the name. That was a learning point for me tonight. And so I did support the building of the Wellness Center, but I think it's really important for everyone to understand the reason why. The building of the Wellness Center was done truly in the best interest of our students and for the years to come, and I think it's really important that the community see the foresight of that decision that was made at the time. I did attend some of the presentations that were done at the time on the capital project, which the Wellness Center, if I'm not mistaken, was a part of. That funding is funding that is completely separate from many of the other things in a school budget. And so it's not like there were funds moved over to do the Wellness Center that are now not able to pay for other things. It's a separate pot of money, and I think it's really important that everyone understand that, because if you don't know that about schools, you might think that we are spending lots of money on things and not on people. And when you're someone like me who appreciates the people working with kids, if you don't have that understanding of how a school budget works, it could look a certain way. And I think it's important that we all try to attend the budget meetings that Jill does, because they're very informative and they help us as a community to understand a very nuanced and difficult budget to really grasp. That being said, I look forward to the opportunities that will happen in the Wellness Center, and I will say this: things don't make a school district better. It's how those things are used by the people in the school district that make a school district better. And I think that we really need to promote how that space is being used by our children. And I think if we do, then people might have a better understanding of the purpose by which it was passed.
Thank you. And back to you, Mrs. Hernandez. And there's two questions here that same topic, so I'm going to combine them. What prevents the district from offering teachers more money to stay in Putnam Valley? And the second question is, what do you believe is the role of the Board of Ed members in recruitment, but more importantly, retention of proven educators?
Okay. They're two different questions, so I just want to make sure that
Yes.
I got them. Okay, so what prevents the district from being able to pay teachers more money? Really, it's the tax cap. And when you live in a certain community, you choose to live in a certain community for certain reasons, but as a person in education, you also choose to work in a certain community, knowing what the financial piece is going to look like. No one starts a job and then figures out how much they're getting paid for it. Everyone has that conversation before they sign on the dotted line. Now, that being said, I think people need to really consider the type of job they are looking for. Everyone has their list of things that they are looking for in a position. Some are looking for a bigger paycheck. Some are looking for a bigger return on investment as far as the change that they can provide in a district. I am a person that wants to work with kids who are underserviced and underprivileged. That's my passion. That's not everybody's passion. And so as an employee, you have to make sure that you are interviewing the district that you are working for just as much as they are interviewing you. And you have to be okay with the terms by which your contract is written. There are certain limitations financially that every district has, and that's just something that I think every organization has to deal with, right? There's a ceiling as far as money is concerned with that. As far as the role of the board members and retaining our teachers, I believe that has to do with relationship. I believe that has to do with climate, culture, and understanding of support for the work that's being done. It doesn't matter if you are the secretary, the custodian, the teacher, the Board of Ed member, the superintendent. Everyone has a job to do, and everybody's job should be valued. And oftentimes, if you feel valued in that way, it's worth being in a district that will pay you fewer dollars than another district that wouldn't value you in the first place.
Okay, thank you.
You've got to love to stay in a district for 25 years, 30 years. You've got to love it, or you're going to be resentful. And if you're going to be resentful, then it's not the place for you. The limitations on a school board for negotiating for larger dollars for the teachers union or individuals, that's not something that's possible to do as far as negotiating with individuals. It is a collective bargaining agreement, and it is with a collective union. There are myriad of issues that go into what constitutes what can be offered and what can't be. The idea of retention gets back to the idea of passion and love, of the people, the area, and the community that you are serving. And it is a service. It is service to a community. It is not a underpaid service. It is an appropriately paid service, and in the region, it is within or around the median on all stages. And that's kind of what our entire district has always strived for, is to we can't be the Chappaqua, but we also don't want to be upstate. So that's that middle ground that we are in. So we're constantly looking at driving towards the middle, which is a horrible phrase when you're thinking about education and thinking about molding children. But as far as the financial piece of it, driving to the middle is what we have to do for staff. There are times when we want to expand what we can do, and where it's possible, we can do that. Where it's not, it's a shame. Is that a stop? Okay.
Thank you. I just want to announce briefly that I was given a note that we have to end by 6:45. So that's one of the reasons why I'm combining questions. Thank you for bearing with me. And I'm going to try to get to as many of these questions as I can in the time remaining. Please rank in order of importance from 1 to 3 students, taxpayers, and teachers when it comes to making a board-level decision.
It's funny, when I ran for the board the first time, I did a huge listening tour. I met with everyone around the school district, town government, recreation groups, religious groups, and I had a standout conversation as I was attending, I think it was a recorder concert in the elementary school, which, anyway. I was approached with a comment and a question that kind of put me off because it was my first time running, and I was not expecting that, just walking into an elementary school event, and we'll say Mary, that's her name, asked me, "Are you for the teachers or the taxpayers?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And I was like, "No, the North Star are students for me, and students are always first. There are, it's a balancing act, and that's the constant struggle on a board, and being one voice of 5 is the constant balancing act between community, between taxpayers and teachers and students. It's, I've been accused of being too teacher-friendly or too financially conservative or in the pocket of Albany or just in cahoots with the administration to get something over the teachers' union. But I mean, you could say that, having been serving in a number of terms, maybe at certain times, there's an ebb and flow as to what is needed at the time. And, my North Star is unwavering, and it's a focus on students, and everything else needs to kind of follow that as my first. And I've heard many times that we are representatives of the community, and I understand that, but students will always come first.
I agree, students are at the center of what we do because whether you have a student in the district or not, the children of today are tomorrow's leaders. And forgive me for sounding like Whitney Houston, but it's true. They're going to lead us one day. And it's really important that we all pour into them. And my philosophy is, truly, it takes a village to raise a child. Just because you don't have a biological child in the school system does not mean that you are not necessarily a mentor or a parent to that child. And I think that as a community, when we come together and we see it that way, that we are investing in our future by investing in our children, then it changes the question to, how can we best, from all of our vantage points, support the students who are in the middle? And when I think about that question, I think about students in the middle and a big circle around them, and everyone who is supporting them from their lens. How are the community-based organizations supporting? How are senior citizens interacting with our students? How are teachers supporting our students? And it's not just teachers. There are a lot of people in the building that do not have a teaching certification that are also teachers of our students. And I think that it's important that that be said as well because they matter just as much. I use the analogy of an orchestra often. Everyone's got to play their part. And I think that if we want to be able to produce the next generation of children that are going to lead us and lead us well, which I think at this point in time we are all craving good leadership, then we need to all pour into them. And I don't know that there's an answer for that second and third place. I would venture to say that the buck stops at the kids, and they're always in the middle.
Thank you. And back to you. And again, I'm going to combine two questions. Both of them pertain to you as individuals, and that's why I'm combining them. The first is, how will you find the time the Board of Ed requires, or how do you find the time the Board of Ed requires? And the second is, how do your religious beliefs affect your decision-making process?
Okay, so time. Time is the one thing that none of us can control. I've learned that in my lifetime. But time and its limitations have never, ever stopped me from doing something in a spirit of excellence. If I chose to run and the community supported me in that decision, it's because I have every intention to do this job in a spirit of excellence the very best way that I know how. And that's really the answer to that question. I have never allowed time to have me do a mediocre job at anything. I don't do anything mediocre in my life, and those who know me know that that is true. I get the question often, how do I do what I do in the time frame that I have? And it's usually that I'm asking for more hours in the day, but we figure it out and we get it done, and we have a support system at home that helps me to be the mom, the educator, the community member, hopefully the Board of Ed member, and the person that I am. That being said, how do my religious beliefs play a role in my decision making? Well, I will say that faith is at the core of who I am. I would venture to say that it's probably at the core of who many of you are. We all have our own beliefs and values, and I think that that's really important, and it's oftentimes what grounds us. I also believe that we are currently talking about a public school system, and that there is something called the separation of church and state. And so whether those lines cross, they probably wouldn't, but I would say that my values and my morals do stem from my faith, and I'm totally fine with that. And we have the right in this country was founded upon such beliefs, to be able to believe what one wants to believe. That being said, I always respect the beliefs and the values of others, as I would like them to respect me, and I live by the golden rule: treat others the way that you want to be treated.
Mr. Ferraro.
As far as time is concerned, I've found a way to log in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours working on behalf of the community through learning, through conferences, through just attending our board meetings, through being engaged in all kinds of activities here on campus. Well beyond what I thought I was going to be able to do, but still remains important to me, and I would still have that time to make that core to what I need to do to be able to do a good job. A lot of phone calls, a lot of emails, and a lot of research and reading. The amount of reading for a board member on different issues than on what you would as a teacher or an administrator. Very different situation. As far as religion and faith, I'll defer on answering that question, as I don't think is an appropriate conversation in a school building. I do think that having that real world experience is key. And additionally, my real world experience outside of my work as a school board member, I'm a business owner, and I'm outside of the education bubble, and I think it's important that that is represented on a school board, having that perspective that is not within the education bubble, because it is a different world. And when we're talking about Putnam Valley, and we're talking about the median household income being essentially the same as what a teacher's income is, teacher salary is on step 15, which is not even the top step, having that real world view is important.
Thank you. I'm going to sneak in one more question, and then we'll do closing statements. So these are both related to issues in the district, and so they're not really the same topics, but they're both, problems. The first question is, what should be done by the district to resolve the drug epidemic in our schools? And the second is, what are your views on prevention of and consequences for bullying and intimidation in our school system? So, drug epidemic and bullying and intimidation.
They're kind of tied together, aren't they? I mean, they're behavioral, and it's, post-COVID, there are many, many challenges, social emotional well-being of our students and our families and our faculty. I find it interesting many times that the school is made to blame for certain things, and maybe it's just my perception, but the epidemic of drug abuse is real, and it is rising. We had the survey not too long ago that talked about more and more, especially post-COVID, are participating in drugs, and the challenge of what legal marijuana now is kind of very, very fuzzy as to how you talk to children and students about that type of drug use when it is technically not illegal anymore, or then the idea of vaping. I think really, really important on the bullying piece. We've seen what inaction can do firsthand by what's happened in Carmel. It's kind of torn that town apart from the issues of bullying and racism that have gone on in that school district. And so far, we've not had nearly the same type of situation here. And a lot of it is really, really subversive and nasty when it happens. I think our levels are probably a little less pronounced than other school districts. We have really good kids, really good families that are here, and I'm supposed to stop.
So I want to point out that in our very own mission statement in the first line, it says that the district will partner with families. And I think that on those two topics, it must be a partnership. Not one side can take the responsibility of that, because we each have a part of that child. I know that many of us take that topic very seriously, and they are related, because at the root of them are the lack of some things. At the root of them are the lack of love, acceptance, belonging, hope, purpose, and confidence. And if we instill in our children in a very early age that they have a purpose in life, that they are not a mistake, that they are here for a reason, if we instill in them that they are loved no matter who they are, what they wear, what their hair looks like, Lord knows I'm dealing with that conversation every day with my 12-year-old. I love you anyway, Vivian, even though your hair is not perfect. I think it's really important that we have those conversations with our kids from both sides. One of the things that I do now is once in a while I'll get on the announcements in my school building and say, if no one told you they love you today, know that we love you at our school. Because sometimes kids don't hear that. And that's when they look for something that's going to help them belong. That's when they try their very first substance, because they're usually being pressured by a peer to do so, and they want to feel that acceptance. That's also why kids bully. And so they are rooted in the same kinds of manifestations of a lack of a pouring into them that can only happen, in my opinion, when school and home and community comes together. And so if we work on that, I think we'll see a betterment to the root cause of what's happening with those two topics.
Thank you. We're going to move right on to closing statements, and we're going to start with you, Mrs. Hernandez.
Well, thank you so very much.
And 3 minutes for closing statements, please.
3 minutes, yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'm a candidate that brings joy, enthusiasm, some knowledge, passion, and dedication, and also humility to this work. For years, I've entrusted my children to the education of the public schools so that I would be able to focus on doing the same for the families that I serve. But now, I can say that I'm incredibly pleased with what my children have experienced in the Putnam Valley schools. They have been loved, they have been nurtured, they have been educated. And I would really like to be able to have an opportunity to take our school district to that next level. But that experience that I've had as a mother is really a testament to the hard work and the dedication of the people who work with my children on a daily basis. Our teachers, our secretaries, our custodial staff, our TAs, our aides, everyone goes into the orchestra. And from those experiences that I've had here in Putnam Valley, not only as a mother, I've also had experiences as a taxpayer, as a homeowner. And I'd like to bring all of those experiences to the table. Joe was right when he said it's important to have a lens that is not about education, and I think that I do have that as well, living in this town, paying my taxes, and being able and hoping to see the fruit of that in the children that I have at home. And while I've never been a board member before, I certainly have a lot to learn, and I believe that that's okay. I can say with all certainty that I'm a person who does everything in a spirit of excellence. I'm a quick learner, and I am an extremely hard worker. If the people of Putnam Valley want someone who's going to do things in a mediocre fashion, that is not who I am, so please don't vote for me. Again, I do things in a spirit of excellence, and it's really important to understand the promise that I bring to the table, and this is the promise that I'd like to leave you with tonight. I would make a promise to do all that I could do to uplift our school district in whatever way, shape, or form. And I make that promise tonight, not just as a Board of Ed candidate, but as a citizen of this community. Whether or not I sit on this board next year, I intend to be more involved in the community, because this is the time in my life where I now am able to do it, and I do believe that I would do that well. When we have hard decisions to make, which is really much of the job and the responsibility of the Board of Education, I think it's really important that we come back to this one question: what's best for our kids? Because when we do that, and when we ask that question and we simplify it, the process gets much easier to decide. I do promise to always listen. I do not promise to always agree, but I do promise to always listen and hear and seek to understand. And I really do believe that the choice is crystal clear, and I hope that you vote for me. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Ferraro.
I started my journey as a trustee 3 years before I ran for the board. My children were in kindergarten and preschool. And in the time since then, the district's implemented full-day kindergarten. We've had a later start for the high school, which is tied to science for better outcomes for children. We've implemented IB and science research. Every budget has been passed since I've been on the board, and it's been under the cap. We've transitioned from an interim super to a homegrown superintendent. We've reached over dozens of collectively bargained contract agreements, as well as scores of individual agreements without much drama or issue. We've implemented many capital projects, security enhancements, safety improvements, the middle school redesign, energy performance, the wellness center. We've built a stronger communication system, and we've had administrative stability. 2 supers in the last 10 years as opposed to 5 superintendents in the prior 10 years. And the end of the revolving door at the physical education, athletics, and health director. I just want to say thank you for coming out tonight. If you didn't know before, you know now. My name is Joe Ferraro, and I'm running for re-election to serve as a trustee. I got to say, it's been an absolute honor to serve the community for the last few years, and I'm super excited about the chance to keep doing what I love. I'm passionate about education, and I believe that every student deserves a top-notch education that sets them up for success in whatever they choose to do. Throughout my time as a trustee, I've worked hard to make sure that our students are always the top priority and that we are all working together to give them the best possible experience. I know we've faced a lot of challenges over the years, from tax caps to Common Core to the pandemic. Truly believe we've come together as a community to make sure that our students are well taken care of, and I'm committed to making sure that we keep doing that no matter what comes our way. As a trustee, I'll keep working to make sure every student has the resources and support they need to reach their full potential. I'm also really focused on making sure that we're promoting equity and inclusion within the district and that we're using our resources in the best way possible. I'm not a polished politician, but dedicated to our community and our students. So I want to say thank you again for your support, and I hope that you'll vote for me on May 16th. I'm grateful for the chance to keep serving our students and community, and I can't wait to see what we will achieve together.
Thank you very much to both of you for being here tonight and for running for office. And I'd like to thank the PTA for hosting the event and the League of Women Voters for facilitating, and for everybody who volunteered working on this. Thank you and good night.